Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
Hi, my name is Tyler Fornes, and I am the co-host of The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee here on the Voice Wrestling Podcasting Network. Every week, my co-host Fred Moreland and I discuss all the happenings of All Elite Wrestling and everything going on in the universe of Tony Khan. We talk about Dynamite, we talk about Rampage, and we will talk about Collision when the time comes as well, along with all the appearances outside of AEW from all the best talents in All Elite Wrestling. This is one of the more cohesive wrestling companies in the entire world, and we discuss every intricacy about it, including the unique booking of Tony Khan that is both a huge positive and a major detriment. Check us out every single Thursday here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Tony Khan listens to the show, and if you don't know, you will soon. Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. My name is Tyler Fornes. With me, as always, is Fred. Despite all my rage, it's Big Bill and Brian Cage Moreland. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. You know, if we're going to book Rampage, I think we should at least get a little, something thrown our way.
You mean Collision?
Yeah, Collision. Yeah,
we booked one match on Rampage, technically, I guess.
Still, I'll just take one Big Bill.
That was very good, Fred. That was
Thank
very good.
you.
Let's talk about All In. And All In is a very interesting spot. There's been a lot of discussion about how the build has been, if it's been good or bad, because going into last night's Dynamites, and we record this Thursday mornings, there was one match officially announced. There were a couple matches already alluded to, one of them being CM Punk Samoa Joe, one of them being Young Bucks FTR. But we didn't have anything concrete. Well, it hasn't mattered much for ticket sales because they have officially surpassed SummerSlam of 1992, and they are this close to surpassing 80,000 tickets distributed, according to WrestleTix. The setup is now for over 84,000. So kind of what they're doing is, with most of the stadium already filled, they're just releasing like the upper deck sections. So then if they fill it up, then they just go and open a new one. And instead of just having a lot of people scattered throughout every available section, you can at least tarp off or put designs or something where you don't necessarily have those sections open. But based on the returns from after announcing a couple matches, they have seen a good spike, because the last time we talked, Fred, the setup was for less than 80,000 people. So they've sold some tickets.
Yeah, they're moving them, and I mean, it's amazing that the show is still growing in attendance. I mean, the numbers are so high at this point that it's hard to imagine them going higher, and yet they are. This really is going to be a special event, and we finally, I think there's a lot of fair criticism because, it's kind of silly that it took so long to confirm it was on pay-per-view rather than, I don't know, Max, or, I don't know, being broadcast across the sky by a platoon of, satellites that have taken over the atmosphere and have doomed humanity while we watch Big Bill body slam someone, which is a superior way to go out, I think, than others. But yeah, I mean, it's very impressive. They caught lightning in a bottle here, and those are some crazy numbers that they have.
Very crazy numbers, but let's get specifically with this build, because I think we can start. Oh, very big build. We're going to get to that. Don't you worry. It's very interesting here. This past Wednesday on Dynamite, they made Young Bucks versus FTR 3 official for All In. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, they made it official. AR Fox and Swerve Strickland versus Darby Allin and Sting
in a coffin match.
I missed the coffin match part.
Yeah, the coffin match. Do you? Okay, my question is, do you do two coffins, or do you do an extra large coffin so that they can,
Honestly, you know what I would do? I would do 3 coffins and elimination style.
Okay.
So if you get thrown in a coffin, you're out. But it doesn't officially end the match because, like, I remember one of the first tables match I ever watched was the Dudley Boys versus Ric Flair and Batista from Royal Rumble 04. And one guy goes through a table. That's the end of the match. I feel like it should be elimination style. And I think that could be a really cool additive.
I think that works better for tables than for caskets, though. But that's just me. Anyways, kind of silly thing to get hung up on.
Yeah, it is a silly thing to get held up on. And the most interesting part of this build isn't even for the pay-per-view itself, which this sent up a lot of red flags for me, Fred. MJF and Adam Cole challenging for the ROH titles on
the
0
pre-show
hour against Aussie Open. Now, that match hasn't been made 100% official yet, but yeah, I feel pretty comfortable saying that match is going to happen. You know what that tells me? Angle to sell that show. And look,
it's brilliant. I mean, if they, assuming they pull the trigger and do the right stuff, that's actually a really smart way to handle it.
Yes. I think it is a smart way to handle it. And I'm really excited to kind of see how this kind of plays out. I genuinely wonder if there is some business metrics that Tony Khan and Mookie Ghana have that they don't have to worry about, these late pushes for all these pay-per-views is worthwhile.
I forget if I've heard that's either like their working theory that they have data for, or if like they've come out and said that. Either Tony Khan or Mike, I don't know. The Harrington does a lot of media, but someone from AEW has actually said that out loud. I do not remember it well enough, but yeah. I think it's obvious that's like a major part of their strategy, though. Now, I think that I really do think they suffered from the compressed schedule of this summer with Blood and Guts being when it was and everything. Like, that kind of backfired on them. But, I think that it's also going to be okay at the same time. I do think it would be preferable if they had done more of, like, doing a big build for the show for like the top matches other than Cole and MJF, which they've been building for a long time. But like, it's presumed that we're going to get Punk and Samoa Joe. And that feels very odd actually now after the booking of the Owen tournament and everything. And, Bucks and FTR, I mean, obviously they have a long history together across companies and everything where that works. But, it would have been nice if, instead of starting it this past week, they started it 3 weeks ago. If they just at least started like hinting at it in promos or something, instead of just kind of turning it on all of a sudden with the FTR challenge. Like if they had at least thrown in a couple barbs or something in different promos they were doing up to that point, would have been preferable, I think. But I don't think it's like a disaster. I just, I would personally like to have these builds start like 2 weeks sooner for most of the stuff, but it feels like this is the way for every AEW pay-per-view, and they didn't shift it for this massive show, and I assume that the business metrics will be solid, at a minimum.
Yeah.
I think they could actually, my working theory is still that baby facing MJF is going to do massive business. And I think that they could, I'm not going to say that they won't set a pay-per-view record, basically, is what I'm doing here. I don't know that I feel confident enough to predict that as their definite biggest pay-per-view buy rate, or buy number, I should say, not buy rate, because that's different. But I would not be shocked by it either.
Yeah, it's the one thing that is going to be really curious is how this number ends up shaking up, because they didn't start talking about this show, and this is a Tony Khan thing, and we can debate the merits of it until the end of the earth.
Sure.
Not promoting a future show when he hasn't finished what he's already doing.
It's almost New Japan-ish.
Yeah, it's like
it's a little different how he approaches it, but still.
For those who don't know, New Japan doesn't promote matches, even though they're known. Like Tetsuya Naito wins the G1. He's going to the Tokyo Dome. They don't promote that match until they make it official. And they make the card 100%.
I personally prefer the kind of the old school Ring of Honor strategy of saying, we're doing these two shows, and on the second show, the world champion is defending against either X or Y, or the challenger is getting a title shot at whoever wins on the first night. I think that works better. Or
you can do hey, they're going to face this person, and if this person has the title, it's going to be for the title.
Yeah, that's an alternative.
You leave the ambiguity up, but I don't really care for that one that much, because there's you're going to kind of promote a world title shot. Well, then the guy doesn't get the world title shot. It's a weird
yeah, that deal. One's a little not my favorite, but it can work depending on how you spin it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely can work. But if this show does a buy rate of the CM Punk All Out in 2021,
hits my hedging.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult to argue, but there's always going to be that little devil on your shoulder that says, well, if they would have started doing this promotion earlier and started talking about it like the big deal it was, with more gusto, without even having to book a match, then maybe you could have done even better business. But we don't have those insider metrics, so we can only go based off what we know. And they got to know something. There's a reason why they're doing it this way.
Yeah. I personally, I think that they could have, had something away from BCC and the Elite announced, before Blood and Guts. Maybe not MJF Cole, since they were still doing some intrigue as to the world title and everything. But, it's, I don't know. I feel like we're kind of getting to the point of being a touch nitpicky about it, I guess. But I do, this is a case where A/B testing would be perfect, right? Where, one pay-per-view, you do the strategy, and then the next one you do the well-announced ahead of time strategy.
And I think that's what they did with the pre-show, where it used to just be matches, and then they went to the WWE style one match, and you basically had Renee Paquette and RJ City talking and promoting the show with video packages. Yeah. And they did that for a couple pay-per-view cycles. Look, that shit ain't for me. But
yeah, I hope I will repeat what I said before, that if that does work better, then capitalism has failed. Just I stand by that take.
This is somehow Benito Mussolini's fault. I don't know how yet. It is his fault. So we're going to leave it at that. We're going to have more about this show as things kind of progress moving forward, and we'll see how things end up going. Let's get to some other news, because we have a lot to talk about as we continue talking about where the state of his company right now. Pac is hurt.
Yes.
Announced on Rampage. Shivani said he'd be out a while. And this was announced during at the beginning of the parking lot brawl, which I thought was really important because the winners were going to take on the Lucha Brothers. And we'll get to that match because there's some interesting elements as we try to project moving forward, especially some frustration with AEW production. But yeah, he's hurt. Sucks that he's hurt for Wembley. But we don't really know how he's hurt. I don't think that part's been released, just that he's out a while.
Yeah. Well, the way Tony Schiavone announced it on Rampage, it was like it was for a long while. So not great.
No,
I hate to hear that because Pac rules, but maybe he'll come back sometime soon. I can only hope.
And he literally just came back, which is even more frustrating.
That's just as a viewer, like just being completely selfish. It's quite frustrating, but
I always feel bad when anybody gets injured, but I feel worse for those who get injured right after they come back from injury. Like when Daniel Bryan at the end of his first WWE run, like it's just, man, that just sucks.
Yeah.
Or Yoshihashi running to the ring and falling underneath it. Like just.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's continue talking. Kip Sabian and Dark Order have signed 3 years extensions. An unconfirmed story Meltzer mentions is that the Elite signed for 4. And we had kind of thought the Elite had signed for 4. That was our conjecture for the sole fact that their first contracts were 4 years. And it just, 4 more years. It makes sense. And especially with the EVP angle, you're not just signing them to be wrestlers, you're signing them as also executives in the company, which, as we found out with Matt Jackson talking about unions the other day, it's a little more complicated. So, look, I don't know. Kip Sabian does absolutely nothing for me. I don't understand how he does business, but I'll tell you, he's at least credible enough where you can beat him like a drum.
Yeah, I will give him credit in that he is capable. He's solid. I don't really want to see him much on TV just because I don't think he's a really exciting or dynamic worker or anything. But he, in that Hardy's trios match with Keith Lee, he did a capable job in there. I would say he was not in the 3 best workers in the ring. It's kind of hard to rank him against the Hardys, who we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, I thought he did okay. That's kind of, he did, he sacrificed through the pandemic to be around, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's AEW for life off that. Good for him. He was a good soldier and he gets rewarded for it. And that's frankly how it should work, I think.
Yes, I agree. And being a good soldier is important. Meltzer,
it's a skill.
Yeah, Meltzer talks injuries. I believe this is from the Last Observer.
It was.
Bryan Danielson probably out until October, but there's a potential he can make Grand Slam. Jamie Hayter's out until February. That one hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And on Thunder Rosa update, she will miss All In. And as we saw from the women's 4-way match, which they made a really big deal about on television.
The storied history of the 4-way women's title match in AEW.
Just say that, like, yeah, you have this storied 4-way, but at the end of the day, you know what's more important? Like, just say, you know what, the first women's match at All In was a 4-way, and we're just going to do a 4-way. Don't give me this storied history stuff, making it sound like 4-ways or this. It's like this pillar of AEW women's wrestling. It's not. Like, just say, hey, the first women's match at All In was a 4-way, and we're going to do a 4-way here. And yeah, that's good enough for me. And that's good enough, and you're not blowing smoke up anyone's butt. You're just saying what's real. And it's obvious what the match is going to be based on the competitors. It's going to be Saraya. It's going to be Toni Storm. It's going to be Hikaru Shida. It's going to be Britt Baker. That match has the potential to be very good. That Mercedes Martinez is mad as I have Collision on in the background. Dude, her shoulders got popped up, and they didn't call it like a shoot.
Yeah.
And she's pissed.
Yeah, it was a weird finish in a weird match.
Yeah. Oh, Diamante. I forgot she's still in this company.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool return, I guess, since we'll talk about this now. I'm not. I do think that the depth of AEW in terms of like name value kind of outpaces their lack of depth and talent, because both Mercedes Martinez and Diamante are solid workers. They're good. I'm not going to say they're great, but they can put on like 3.5-star matches at a high, at the higher end. Maybe dip up to 4 if it's particularly great. So I think using them more as, viable people in the division is beneficial to the company, especially with 2 major shows.
Yeah, I think the 2 major shows really, really makes a difference. And
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But let's get through the news, because we have a lot to talk about, including the first ever good, bad Hungee offer match. And Wardlow did a panel at Terrificon. Is that the board game convention?
I don't know. That's some stuff I'm not aware of. You could do a quiz next week with like these con names, and I would probably get less than half of them right if I were to ask them identify if they're real or fake.
Yeah, well, I asked because there was a con in Indianapolis this past weekend that was a board game convention. Yeah. I had a friend of mine from high school who ended up going to that with her husband, so that's why I asked the question. It looks fine. So that's the news. Not a whole lot. Now, Fred, we have a lot of directions that we can go with this show.
Oh, I have one more news nugget I just got right now, and I am sorry for just finding this. From last week's Observer, apparently Sportico, the site we all know and love, and I've definitely heard of before. They cover
like the business end of sports, like ratings and that kind of stuff. I've consulted with them on a few pieces over the course of time.
I haven't heard of them before. That's just me. They did a story saying that they talked with some people, some bankers that said that if AEW is put up for sale, they'd go for more than $1 million. Or I'm sorry, $1 billion with a B. Misspoke there pretty badly today. So
yeah, so that sounds about right, considering you have all the intellectual property. You got to figure the tape library of just the AEW ROH that Tony Khan has assembled. That's probably in the realm of, I don't know, that's probably like at least $50 million right there just for the tape library. And then you have all the ring equipment, all the sets, and then you basically take what you're worth right now and like your total revenue, and you do like I think it's 1.5 times total revenue. So yeah, I think over $1 billion makes sense. I would guess if they were to actually sell, which I don't think they would, it would probably be for closer to $2 billion, considering what they're about to get for a television deal. And I think that would be a big part of the sale. But what did WWE go for? Like $7 billion?
Something like that. I forget the exact number right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Samoa Joe just squashed Penico in literally 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was like 25 or something. It was great.
They didn't even get to 20. Serpentico ran at him, he kicked him, put him in the Coquina clutch, and that was it.
Yeah. One other thing is that Buddy Matthews' shoulder actually was dislocated in that ladder match with Andrade.
We thought it was.
Yeah.
Like we saw, was it Doc Samson pull it in?
Yeah.
Like,
yep. He was able apparently to get it back in socket, and I mean he worked the trios match the next week, so seems to be all right.
Yeah, and that's objectively good.
Okay, now let's talk about the shows.
Yes. Where do you want to go first? There's a lot to talk about here, and it's a lot of fun stuff to talk about, which is my favorite part.
Let's talk about the one time in the past month that Rampage became mandatory viewing, which was for that excellent. I thought it was really great. The parking lot brawl between Mox and Claudio and the Best Friends.
Okay, I have to start out here because this is where this company sets themselves apart from other companies. you have Mox and Claudio getting to the parking lot first. And what do? They're opening up every trunk to make sure Orange Cassidy's not hiding, because he hid in the first parking lot brawl and jumped out of Proud and Powerful, and it ended up being a turning point in the match. Yep. Knowing your history, and it's one of those things that, you know what, as a casual viewer, and we talk about casual fans, it's kind of a myth. It's kind of like it's a monolith. Like, it just they exist, but they really don't.
The way that they're used in conversation is as a straw man to try to make the company you don't like look bad, essentially.
Yes.
I think is how a lot of the time it's used.
But I'll say this. That was great. For those who know, it was a phenomenal touch. For those who didn't, yeah, they explained it well. Great stuff. And then you had the Plunder King himself, Chuck Taylor, and Trent Beretta. Look, these guys busted their ass. And one of my favorite parts of there are two favorite parts of the match. One, Wheeler Yuta pops out of the Suburban like Orange Cassidy did in the first one. So not only did they look to make sure Orange Cassidy wasn't doing it, then they did it themselves. Plus, we have to talk about Sue. I thought the inclusion of Sue was great. And she's just an NPC. For those who don't do like a lot of video and board games, it's a non-played character. It's just there. It exists. It's like those people you walk up to in Pokemon and then they just tell you things about the game. Yeah. But she's Trent's mom, Trent's little goober, and she pulls up in her van. Claudio tells her to get out, and he rips the door off the hinges. Like, okay. Like, we've seen Sue. She's been used on the show before. Some people hated it, and I kind of understand it, but I think it's just a nice little simple touch. You don't like
it doesn't hurt, I don't think.
It's cohesive, it fits with Beretta's character, and if you think it sucks with Beretta's character, that's fine. That's a different story. Mm-hmm. But it works. And to me, I think that's what's important. It works, it was fun, and they utilized it well within the context of what this was. And she, I think, if I remember correctly, she drove up Orange Cassidy, which there's your Orange Cassidy bit. Because, she's done that before. So I liked that. I gave this match 4.5. Like, this was some of the most fun I've had watching pro wrestling in a long time. I've been feeling some burnout lately. We were talking about that in the pre-show. This was great. They beat the living crap out of each other. And
they did. It was brutal. You could argue that maybe, especially if they're heading towards like some kind of match involving Moxley and Orange Cassidy on opposite sides, that maybe they should have had OC look a little better coming out of this just to help set that up better. But, you could also just have them be fired up and want to get revenge and everything.
I don't think that matters. I mean, look at the Blackpool Combat Club, how many times they beat the crap out of the Elite. I think there's merit to what you're saying. I also don't think it matters at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal, at least. Maybe just personal preference there. But also, you can argue the other way. I love this match, though. I thought it was great. I thought it was the best AEW match of the week. I went 4.5 on it. And I thought it was honestly the only reason to watch Rampage this week. Outside of the Big Bill and Brian Cage promo was good. We're dangerously close to just becoming marks at this point, but I liked it a lot. So
yeah,
I have no regrets on saying that.
No, let's talk about. Let's transition over to Brian Cage and Big Bill.
Yes.
Listen, this was the best match of the week. You can talk about Ospreay Okada. You can talk about Tanahashi Naito. It was Big Bill, Brian Cage versus FTR. This is the Good, Bad, and Hungee offer match.
Yes.
Tony Khan has listened to us. They gave Big Bill and Brian Cage a title shot. They're working cohesively. They have a potential superstar in Big Bill, and we've talked about it here before. And now, Fred, you are finally on board.
Well, I wouldn't say that I wasn't on board before, but this was Like the thing that struck me the most as I was watching this match was that this is like maybe he'll get better, but this is like peak Big Bill. Like this is the idealized version of him, I think, in terms of in-ring performance. He just looks super confident. He is 100% on board with the character he's doing. He's working great. He sells great for a big guy. He's just awesome. Like he really is. I think he's been amazing, and I know that he's been improving ever since that Impact run that really restarted his career. But that's the only reason I'm hesitating on thinking about him as like the most improved award winner, because he rules. This tag team has been a revelation with Brian Cage. I think Brian Cage has been helped out by it a lot. I think it's given them some nice direction. And at this point, why not just put them in the embassy, the Mogul Embassy, and you can bring over Lee Moriarty too. It's a heel group. They can always use, young lackey like Lee. But yeah, I mean, Bill was awesome in this match, and he just looked extremely at ease in the ring, and that's always cool to see.
It was great.
Yeah.
And Brian Cage is obviously doing 80s Surfer Sting, like kind of cosplay, the similar paint. And then he's got Cage written on his tights with like a scorpion. And then he's got the Wolverine slash on the other side of the pants.
Your pre-show comparison of him to Power Warrior was perfect, I thought.
Yes. It just reminds me so much of Power Warrior in New Japan. And I'll say this, and I've said it here before, Big Bill needs to be utilized like Big Show was for Paul Heyman in like 2004 SmackDown. Final boss. Be that guy. And like I think you can credit a lot of John Cena's success to that Big Show feud where he ended up winning the title at WrestleMania 20, the US title, and that really got him through the next year, and then he won the WWE title from JBL, and he was off to the races. I think having a guy like Big Bill in that spot, especially with Big Bill's history, like he was not a good wrestler in WWE. And then Impact, he really started to figure it out, and he's had some battles with demons. But at the end of the day, he's improved. He's figured out how to work better, and he's figured out how to work like a big man, which is not easy to do. Working like a big man in a small man's game now, like we're not talking Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are the norm. The norm is Kenny Omega, 220 pounds. That like if you put Eddie Guerrero into today's professional wrestling, he would fit in perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The average size of the worker has definitely decreased since the 80s. Some of that is because people aren't like made up of 30% steroids, which is good for their health. But there's obviously guys using stuff, and that's a whole discussion I should have another day. Because there's people that we're talking about in this match that I wonder about. But it's Big Bill is the right size to look like a monster in this company, and he's able to work with people. And I thought he worked really well with FTR in this match. And I don't know, I just thought this was awesome all around. Just a really good time. I went 4.25 on it, I do believe. And
I went 4.5. This was great. They really need to be a full-time tag team, or as you mentioned, them joining the Mogul Embassy, and then you put Lee Moriarty in there, and then you have your trio.
Well, you already got the Gates of Agony, but yeah, I mean, you could just, go full Freebird rules,
Yeah, like this team needs to be a permanent fixture in All Elite Wrestling. It really does, and I think we were proven right again, as we usually are, Fred. This team rules. It is
It's a lot of fun. Also fun in this match, and I know we're praising them in a match they just had with FTR, which is kind of like, that's easy mode.
I could have a match with FTR.
Yeah, but they've had other good matches, involving lesser workers. So let's not, pretend that they aren't capable at a minimum. But another fun thing in this match that made me laugh was Cash Wheeler's mother no-selling getting his ass kicked by Big Bill right in front of her. And then later after the match, Cash comes over to hug her. She doesn't want to because he's sweaty as hell. And so he just rubs his head on her. Fantastic son trolling and fantastic mom not working with kayfabe. Good, just, funny stuff around.
Yeah, it was just a perfect spot. And
Yes.
I've got Collision on right now, and Action Andretti, Darius Martin, and Big Shotty Lee Johnson just walking in the ring. You have House of Black just staring at him. Brody King, tattoos and baby oil. Malachi Black, tattoos and baby oil. Buddy Matthews, clean as a sheet. Just a hilarious dichotomy trio because Buddy he doesn't seem to fit in, but he just does.
He does.
Yeah, it's just great stuff. And then you have little Miss Julia Hart, just the cute little vixen on the side. And it's like, this
banned from ringside.
Just it's awesome stuff. I love it. And like Big Bill and Brian Cage need to be a permanent fixture. They do.
Yeah.
Please, Tony Khan, make it happen for me. Dude, just do it for me. You don't need to do it for anybody else. Do it for me. Where do we want to go here, Fred?
Let's talk about Collision some more. That we have that excellent match, and then FTR doing the promo to set up the Bucks match. I think we've already kind of talked about the build to All In. So I do want to put over the shtick with the cardboard cutout Jay White.
Oh, that's so good.
It's great. I think that they're speaking of acts that are at ease with what they are and are 100% on board and confident. That's Bullet Club Gold right now in particular. I think they're helping the Guns out too. I still don't know what to make of the Guns as prospects. I know that they are natural heels and everything, but I don't know that. I've always been underwhelmed by them as workers. And, so because of that, I'm a little iffy on their future, but they definitely feel like they fit in well with these guys. And maybe they're going to learn how to better utilize their promoing.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Bullet Club Gold. I will say I bought a Bullet Club Gold t-shirt and I love it. But I don't know what to make of them. What are we doing? What are we
building to? Yeah, I think that's a good question with him. Because Jay White is too talented to just be in a mid-card tag team.
Yes.
And
he's absolutely too talented.
It kind of feels like that's where he's slotted, and the guy is good enough where he should be I have no problem with them teaming sometimes with Juice Robinson. I think that's a great team and very entertaining and everything. But the structure should be Jay White is the main eventer. Juice Robinson is the capable mid-carder, and the Guns are kind of in that lackey slot. Maybe they're a little more competent than outright Stooges or something. But, Jay White should be, if not in the immediate, main event mix, upper mid-card, position, at least a top 5 heel in the company, and it doesn't feel like he's that right now.
Yeah. I understand, and this is one of those hindrances with Tony Khan's booking on a long-term level. If he doesn't have anything for you, he just doesn't book you. And we've seen it with Miro, we've seen it with Pac.
Lance Archer.
Yeah, maybe just don't book him. Because it doesn't feel like he has anything planned for him. And to me, I think that's the most frustrating part. You got this coup and in getting Jay White from New Japan, and you're not even using him.
Yeah, Jay White, who is 30. He doesn't even turn 31 until later this year. I mean, it's wild. Yeah, I know that we've talked about it some, and I know that Joe Lanza at some point on one of his shows had a fantastic rant about it, but You bring this guy in who is this young superstar from Japan, like a legit main eventer who's beaten Okada, who is positioned as, if not like outright on the level of Okada, because he's basically their top babyface and like kind of at another echelon.
Mm-hmm.
He's positioned like the next step down, like instead of an A+ player or S tier, whichever you prefer, he's an A tier guy, which is a great spot to be in. And then he comes over to AEW, and he's positioned as like B tier at best, and you could really argue he's been more of a C tier guy. And his most notable work has been putting over CM Punk, which, hey, CM Punk is an absolute main eventer. I get it. But it was like a short feud, like lasted 3 weeks. And I don't know, man. It's kind of weird, and I don't get it. I don't know like how you bring this guy in and don't at least sell it like it's the biggest signing in the world.
Yeah, it's
odd. It's always going to be weird to me.
It was a huge deal because he was one of the biggest free agents, and we knew that WWE threw some money at him, and as they freaking should. It's Jay White. Jay White is a talented individual. He's one of the best talkers in the business, as you kind of alluded to, and his best fit is arguably on American television wrestling. So now you have him on American television wrestling, and you're using him like this. I genuinely just don't understand what the idea is. And you know what? The one thing Tony Khan has always done is he has us in a position where we need to trust the vision and we need to see it out. There have been times where he's freaking wrong, but a lot of times he's right. Like, well, no, they should have done this or they should have done that. And you know what? He times things really well more often than not. And we talked about it, and we'll end up having this conversation a little bit. Like Jack Perry, did he turn on Hook too quickly? That's
I don't think that he did. You could definitely argue that they could have stretched that out some more, but I think that it's going to end up with Hook versus Perry on one of the two pay-per-views coming up. Maybe not necessarily Wembley, but the All Out. Yeah, I don't know, man. We've talked about it for a while. I do think that Tony Khan is one of the best bookers going today. But at the same time, he has some weird flaws, and it's kind of frustrating. And this is a good example of that.
Yeah, I think that is a really good example. And we'll kind of see how, like, moving forward, things end up working here. But I'm very disappointed so far with what this is. And we'll see. I think that's really the best way to phrase it. We'll see. I alluded to it earlier with Jack Perry. Let's talk about Jack Perry and this whole ECW thing.
Okay.
I don't know what the end game is, but I'll say this. They used Rob Van Dam perfectly.
They did.
They had a reason to bring him in, FTW title, and they had a brief story where it's like, oh, I've retired titles before. Okay, great. I'm going to retire this one. Perfect. You have the basis of a simple pro wrestling story. And then they went out and had a borderline 4-star match. They worked incredibly hard.
Whoa,
okay.
Woo!
Okay, listen.
Woo, feeling yourself, buddy, with that. Whoa.
I'm not giving it 4 stars. Okay.
A borderline 4-star.
I think 3 3/4 isn't unfair here. And one of the reasons I'm giving it 3 3/4, straight up, the work is not worth 3 3/4. But you know what is worth? The storyline and the tone of the match, the hard work. It wasn't crisp. It was ugly. It felt like ECW a little bit because you had the weapon spots and you had the way they kind of built everything up. I thought it was just, for what it was perfect. And you could probably do it better, but look, this was exactly what it should have been. And I loved it.
Okay, I mean, everyone's ratings is their own. I just think that 3 3/4 is spicy on this. I thought it was, it was fun. Don't get me wrong, but it also I don't know, when it comes to star rating matches, that's not something that I would even remotely have close to anything that positive. I went 2 3/4 on it. I thought that it was, with 2 is my benchmark for average, and I thought it was a pretty well above average match. Enjoyable, but sloppy. And Rob Van Dam is what he is at this point, which is, wow, I can't believe Rob Van Dam can still do that stuff at this age. I
think what's really important here, Fred, maybe the difference between how I view it and how you view it. It wasn't a strategic, we're going to tell this really good pro wrestling story. It's, hey, Jack Perry, you're a dick. You don't deserve this title, so I'm going to win it from you, and then I'm going to retire it. And we're going to do it FTW rules, which is basically ECW. And they had that kind of match. And I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Now, am I ever going to rewatch it? No. But it was just a good, solid match that got the story across for what it needed to be. And I thought
I thought it was enjoyable.
That's rated so highly. Yeah. And that's the really tough thing with star ratings, because this 3 3/4 is going to be a lot different than a 3 3/4 lucha match that you see in CMLL. It's going to be a lot different than a title match that gets 3 3/4. But I thought this was a very good match.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm very curious to see where this goes from here. I doubt it. But do we get Taz at all?
I can't imagine. Now, I can't imagine Taz wrestling a match. It just seems like that's not going to happen. He is not physically capable of that. Now, if that's incorrect, obviously it'd be awesome to have Taz come out. What I think will happen is we'll have, whenever they do the blow off here, they'll have Taz accompany Hook to the ring. And maybe Hook will have the towel, full-blown Taz entrance, who knows? Or maybe they'll just insist on having Hook be his own guy, which is also good and arguably better. But, I could see him, doing something to play a key role in the finish and helping his son win in a babyface way, and that would work.
It just feels like Taz is going to be involved somehow, because they've utilized him, Fred, throughout the context of what this story has been. When Hook got turned on, he basically stormed off of commentary desk, and it felt like he was going to leave commentary anyways, because Tony Schiavone came in, but they built it so well, and how he's called these matches and how he's stayed relatively professional, but he's still absolutely livid about his son Hook getting screwed. It gives me, I don't know if he's going to wrestle an actual match, and I probably agree with you, he won't. I think there's more meat on the bone with Taz, because this is Taz's belt. He created the Fuck the World title. And I feel like you can do more, but I don't know how to get there without doing stupid ECW nostalgia for the 9 millionth time. So far, the ECW stuff has been fine, acceptable, and good.
Except for the Jerry Lynn promo off.
Whatever. I can live with the Jerry Lynn promo.
Okay.
But
I'm just saying it wasn't good. I'm not saying it was a disaster, but it wasn't good. That's my take.
The concept was fine. And
I'm getting my shit in here, all right?
Yeah, you're getting your shit in, and it sucks, Fred.
How dare you?
The Jerry Lynn promo was fine. The construct, the concept.
Yeah, it set up something, and that was fun.
Yeah, and will it do anything more? I don't know. But oh my God, Christian Cage has a little girl with him in a promo.
Okay, you haven't got to. That is his daughter. You haven't got to watch this yet, which is unfortunate. I will. This is one of the highlights from Collision, which was definitely the better show this week. He has his daughter there. He says that as the TNT champion, he's a role model to children everywhere. And then Christian's daughter asks for the belt And Christian tells her, no, you didn't win the belt, so you can't have it. Go find your mother. And then immediately after his daughter walks off, he shouts for security and tells them to eject her because she's not credentialed. Christian Cage rules. He is fantastic. Just one of the all-time best on the mic. And I hate how he's been kind of underutilized for the vast majority of his career, and I really do wish that I wonder what like a sliding door situation where there's a viable promotion where he didn't work for a guy that thought he should have a dot over his face for basically the first 15 years of his career. But
that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
It was a fantastic segment. He's great.
Did you win this belt? No, go find your mother.
Yes.
Bitch, you didn't win it either.
Exactly.
Christian is
He's
one
great.
of the best things about television. Like,
he's
oh my gosh. And Jay White's coming out, and they have the cardboard cutout of Jay White. What?
The bits are good. The bits are scientifically good. I want to talk about Dynamite as a whole. I thought this was a very underwhelming show in general. There were, I thought the work on the matches was disappointing. And I thought that really let the show down as a whole. I can't really bury the RVD match. Like, that's about as good as that's going to be. We already had that discussion. The Hardys, man. The Hardys are donezo. Like, I just can't imagine them getting a major push, but Matt Hardy talked about how right before Jeff Hardy's DUI, the plan was for them to win the World Tag Team Championships, and that was obviously what the booking was leading to. But they just cannot move. Like, it's bad. Like, Matt Hardy, can't walk well, and Jeff Hardy he's doing shoot. Pity on Kip Sabian. We kind of buried him early on for not being a great worker and all that, but pity on him for taking that dreadful shoot swanton, the most dangerous move in wrestling, from Jeff Hardy, where it's just like 200 pounds of potatoes fall on you from the sky. It looks like it sucks so much, and he doesn't do anything to mitigate the hit, and it's awful. So credit to Kip Sabian for not shattering into a zillion pieces. But yeah, I thought this Hardy's Young Bucks match was not good. Or, well, okay, look, it wasn't below average. It could have been worse. I've seen worse. I went 2 3/4 on it. I thought it was, like above average. But in terms of a Young Bucks straight tag match that gets about 15 minutes on TV, that's a failure. It's saying something when Jeff Hardy is probably a better worker than you at this stage in his. I'm sorry, Jeff Jarrett is a better worker than you at this stage in your career versus the Hardys.
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. Honestly, I thought the match was somewhat inoffensive.
Yeah, it was structured well. That was its saving grace. There was no massive botches or anything, but it wasn't good.
It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. It was fine. I think that's the best way to put it. It was fine. There was nothing really wrong with it. It kind of just existed. And I think that's important here. It existed. And that's what you're going to get out of the Hardys. They're not good. I gave this a gentleman's 3. It was fine. They didn't blow anything. You got a couple cool Hardy spots. You got that swanton in the corner that felt like it could be the finish, and it wasn't. Like, the whole thing was, that's probably the best you're getting from this team at this
iteration of the Hardys. Yeah. But it's, I just don't know what to do with them as a booker. That's the great question, because I'm sure they're on big money deals. They're big nostalgia names, and they just can't go. And especially in the modern AEW style, it's just tough, man. It's difficult.
It is difficult. And it would have been great if we would have been able to get them 4 years ago, because then I think we could have really had a tag title run, and it makes sense and not be embarrassing.
But now I can't envision it. It's just not the right thing at the right time.
Wow.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was the dichotomy between the MJF and Adam Cole segments we had on this show. So we had the pre-tape first, right, with them going to the trampoline thing, and basically a repeat of the video game segment in a lot of ways. Only instead, you get MJF pelting kids with dodgeballs, and obviously it worked but still, it's I thought that part was kind of funny, but at the same time, compare that, I thought a lot of it was cringe. Adam Cole acting like a literal child, and just kind of going back to the well for the same kind of thing. And then you have the live promo in front of the crowd, and that was a fantastic segment. These two, I think, obviously work a lot better when they're working with the crowd, when they're working live, when it's not with these, very cringily silly, setups to lead into the segments, or to do these pre-tape segments, I should say. And it's just kind of, it sucks. I don't like it. And I just wish that they would stick to these live promos that work so well, that really show off their skills and work with the crowd and everything. I think they're utter successes whenever they're live with microphones. And instead of doing these, what I think are bad pre-tapes.
I will say the absolute best part about that pre-tape was MJF chucking dodgeballs at the kids, and then the one kid's like, aren't you guys too old to be here? And then he just tells her, look, this is, it's a weird one, because it's kind of borderline child abuse, but it's also not, because it's dodgeball, but I don't know if I'll put this on TV. I understand why they're doing these, because I think these are moving ratings, and obviously WWE is having success with these. But why? Why are we putting these on AEW television, especially with MJF throwing, as funny as it was at parts, whipping dodgeballs at children?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
I can't disagree with you. I do think there's some humor in it, because it's obviously so absurd and over the top that it's not literally arguing that this is good behavior. I can't really, but I do think the segment overall was pretty cringe at the same time. So, that's my take on it, I guess. I feel like I don't have a real good follow-up on it. It's just this is what I think happened, and they keep doing it, and I guess it works, but I don't like it,
Yeah. It is what it is. And let's transition from the shitty pre-tape to the actual live promo, Fred.
Yeah.
The live promo itself was good.
Probably the best thing on the show, wouldn't you agree?
One of them, I liked the BCC Lucha Brothers tag, and we'll get to that after this, because I think what that is important here.
Yeah.
But it was good, and the one thing I really like about the story is, one, these guys are both so over with the crowd. Two, it's planting little seeds here and there. You don't know where this is going, and it's making it more engaging. You had them talk like Adam Cole talking about the ROH World Tag Team Champions. And then you had him talking about, hey, let's go for these belts right before. And planting hints like, okay, why are you going to wrestle twice in one night when you don't have to?
Yeah.
And that sends up a lot of red flags. That tells me a turn could happen on the pre-show.
Oh,
And then,
I mean, I would bet you money that it does. I'm on the 98% certain.
then you had Roderick Strong come out and talk shit, and then the Kingdom. Was Roddy ever in the Kingdom?
I was not watching Ring of Honor at that time, but let me check it real quick.
Neither was I, but I had this inkling that he was in the Kingdom, and that's
no, it
why
doesn't look like he was.
So well.
No,
okay,
I guess not.
All right, so he's obviously like Adam Cole. I believe he formed the Kingdom back in the day.
Yes, he did.
And the Kingdom is still going on with Matt Taven. And I think that's fine. And I like how it's kind of included here. But will it, like, how's this going to matter? Is Adam going to turn and reform the Kingdom like in its old glory? How does that make a difference for the Elite? Because obviously you have the Super Click. He's kind of distanced himself from the Elite over the past few weeks just because of obviously the Elite Blackpool Combat Club, Adam Cole.
They haven't even like connected the two really since his return outside of like a BTE bit, I think.
Yeah, well, they did like a Halloween show and where they all dressed up as Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is it? And then you had at Full Gear, you had that 6-way Falls Count Anywhere match with Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. That was a lot better live than it was on TV because it was so chaotic.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. And Ricky Steamboat hugging Jim Ross. That's a cool little touch.
Yeah, that was a nice little thing.
Jim Ross used to call Ricky's matches and Jim Crockett back in the day. Like, cool stuff. But I just wonder how this is all going to kind of link together. And Roddy makes things really interesting because, look, Roddy's never going to be a push commodity, and it sucks. He should be a pushed commodity. But unfortunately, he's now about 40, and I just think the time has passed. But you can use him, I think, like as a workhorse in like a unit, and in a formation of the Kingdom, I think that would work out really well.
Yeah, as a good goon kind of guy.
Yes, I really think so. This worked. But I think what was really intriguing to me was Adam Cole put his finger in MJF's chest, and that planted even more seeds. And they ended up kind of, after like about a minute, kind of getting in a position where they were fine. But I don't know where this is going, but the in-ring promo stuff when they're in-ring together has been great. Just keep doing that. Ignore the rest.
Yeah. I think they've done a great job of setting up what could potentially be a great driver for pay-per-view buys by having this MJF Cole tag team match on the pre-show, where I presume that Adam Cole will turn on MJF and use this opportunity to soften him up for the World Championship match later that night. I think that they have to do that versus like teasing it and then not delivering. I think that it will be much more effective if we get Adam Cole going full heel and, the last few minutes of the pre-show where people are encouraged to buy the pay-per-view. It consists of him just beating the hell out of MJF and going full heel. And in turn, MJF being a full-blown babyface.
I really hope so. I want to see MJF as a babyface. I don't know if you have him as a babyface champion, and I would almost say take the title off of him at.
Yeah, I think Cole as champion here works well. I will add, I think that's about all I got to say on that, but I hope they do this right, because I will again repeat my prediction that if they book this correctly, they could legitimately make MJF the biggest star in wrestling.
And you could argue he already is, but I would probably give that to Will Ospreay. You can say whatever you want about WWE and Roman Reigns. Look, its own fan base is turning on the bloodline right now. And that's tough. It's hard. It's especially hard with WWE to understand who's actually a star at this point, because WWE sells tickets because they're WWE, not because the product is great. Now, the Bloodline has been moving a lot of tickets, and that's inarguable. But
yes,
like, are any of those guys truly a star, or is the story a star? And I think that's a fun discussion that we could have at another time, because this is an AEW podcast.
Yeah,
we should get to this Blackpool Combat Club and Lucha Brothers match, because one, this match was very, very good, but they botched the finish again because of production. Not only did they not get Moxley ripping off Pentagon Jr.'s mask,
the
camera shot had his face exposed.
Yep.
Like, look, I understand this isn't a lucha company, but come on. We are better than this.
Well, and the worst part was that it was shown pretty clearly. I mean, granted, he had makeup on and everything, so it's not that devastating. But he was shown pretty clearly in the replay.
And you know what? Live, okay, I can give you a little bit of a break. You show it in a replay. That's no excuse.
Ridiculous. That's bad.
Like, very frustrating. But what I'm really intrigued by is it felt like with the post-match beatdown, they were setting up for a third guy. They were setting up for somebody to come out. And to me, a seed was planted that there's going to be somebody else. I don't know who that somebody else could be that is closely aligned with them, because obviously you have Death Triangle. But their time in Mexico, I don't really know who they're very close with. Obviously, Laredo Kid.
Yeah, Laredo Kid is someone that they usually are affiliated with, I think. They could always go with Commander, who's been affiliated with them to some extent, or Vikingo.
Do any of those guys make sense for what this feud is, though? That's where I'm having the difficulty here, Fred.
I mean, I don't really know for sure if the BCC feud is Lucha Bros, or if it's just them getting one over on them on their way to something bigger for the pay-per-view, which I assume I frankly assume that it'll be BCC against, the rumor that's been going around for a couple of weeks is, some formulation of BCC versus Orange Cassidy and Eddie Kingston, possibly with a third guy on the babyface side. We'll see if that happens. No idea, frankly, but
yeah, the Eddie Kingston one is interesting. I'm very intrigued to see how he ends up coming back, who he aligns with, and how he figures it out. Because obviously he still hates Claudio, but he and Mox have this very long, complicated history. How does that end up working? And I think progressing forward, that's going to be a really big telltale sign of how this three-way feud is going to go. Best friends, I think we've gotten the most out of best friends with this feud right now.
Yeah.
But it feels like Blackpool Combat Club is almost in a stalling point until we get Bryan Danielson back, and then I think we're really going to get some fireworks.
Yeah, I like best friends as workers, but they're obviously mid-carders. Even though I think Trent is one of those guys that's talented enough to be higher up the card. That's what he is. He's a mid-carder. I think that it'd definitely be a disappointment if they set up this trios match with the mystery babyface partner, and that mystery partner is Trent or Chuck. It's kind of like, oh, okay. That's not a special surprise at all. So I feel like if they do go the route of it being a mystery partner, now this is like conjecture on top of conjecture. So we'll see. They have to pull someone a bigger deal than that. I'm going to float someone, just popped in my head right now. And I do wonder, it's a possibility, I reckon. I wonder if they go with Shibata. He's had issues with around the pure title with Yuta. Maybe. I don't know. That's a guy that could make sense.
I could see it. I don't know what Mark Briscoe's injury is, but that's possible.
I think he's
because
still
of
out.
Claudio.
Yeah.
I think so too, but we're spitballing here. How this continues to evolve, and this is why, as much as we criticize Tony Khan and his booking, you have to let things play out because he usually finds a way to make it work. And we're just going to have to believe that he can make this work.
Yeah, and their stuff works financially. It's not like he's putting out these great shows that 18 people buy. Like, the pay-per-views are financial successes. I'm very interested. This is a conversation we'll definitely have more later on. I'm very curious as to how All Out works as a pay-per-view, given its proximity to All In, and the fact they aren't doing, apparently, any kind of package deals. But that's a whole nother conversation for another time.
Yeah. Let's talk about Worth Your Time here, Fred.
Okay.
The Jericho Appreciation Society meeting.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
We have to talk about this.
Yes, we do.
Very interesting. Jericho barely said anything. And it kind of went around basically everybody just burying him under the sun and calling him a selfish fuck. And I thought the best promos were Daniel Garcia, who basically is like, I changed who I was for you. And then he gets in his face, does his little dance, and basically flicks him off and leaves. I thought that was tremendous. I thought it was very well executed, very well done. 2.0's promos were great. I even thought Hager's was decent. Look, Hager can't talk. But for what he is, who he is, and the background that they have together, I thought the promo was just fine. It got to where it needed to go. And he got a pop for the hat, which I'm a sucker for the hat.
Yeah. I was surprised that they broke Hager off. I thought that they might have kept him around as like the one true stalwart, but it makes sense within the storyline. So
yeah. What's really intriguing is we're going to get an answer next week for if he's going to join the Don Callis family. Is this going to set up something with Kenny Omega? Because Kenny was interviewed by Alex Marvez later on in the episode. Like, hey, what are you doing for All In? He's like, I don't know. I'm having a conversation with JR about it next week. Do we get him and Takeshita versus Omega and Ibushi? Because Ibushi is the only person that Omega is really aligned with in AEW canon that's not doing anything.
Well, Adam Page.
Yes, good old Hangman. I forget about Hangman because he's barely on television anymore. He's
picked up that MJF schedule.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. Bad for me as a viewer. Good for him.
Yeah. With the new kid and everything, I get it. So.
Yeah. This Jericho Appreciation Society thing is very odd as well because you have all these guys who were sports entertainers and we were supposed to hate them because they're sports entertainers. But now they're doing a face turn as sports entertainers and we're supposed to cheer for them.
I'm not sure that they're turning face or if Jericho's turning face or if they're all turning face. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I think that aspect of it is going to be a big question mark that isn't resolved yet. It won't be for another week or two, I think. Maybe it'll be resolved next week when Jericho goes out and announces if he's joining the Callis family or not. I don't know. That's the part I think is kind of what it's hung up on. waiting on, I guess.
Yeah. Very fascinating. Very fascinating. Overall, this is... I want to see Garcia go back to just being a wrestler because he's gotten over as a personality and he's a technical wizard. And at Voice of Wrestling, we are doing, and I believe this project will be completed next week. Let's talk about this ESPN 30 under 30 list, which was an absolute abomination.
I haven't even looked at it.
Oh my God. I'm pulling it up.
Okay. I am also pulling it up. Okay. Well, so I'm going to caveat here because there's some obvious limitations on it. First of all, they aren't going to dive into all Japan or anything like that.
Well, they dove into New Japan. They dove into Mexico a little bit. But
Dominic Mysterio at 5. Oh my God. Oh Jesus.
They have Hayashi Shida at 15. They had Julia at 11. So I mean, they're actually using individuals from throughout the world, but
kind of.
Kaito Kiyomiya is at 21. Saya Kamitani is at 22. Yota Tsuji at 23. Masha Slamovich. She's only 25, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
That's surprising.
Tyler Bate is only 26 years old. That is so gross.
They've talked about misuse, man.
Shota Umino at 30. The honorable mentions: Atlantis Jr., Azumi, Chris Statlander, Ren Narita, Miyu Yamashita, Starlight Kid, Shun Skywalker. They did better than I thought. Now the top 10's all America-based guys, including Vikingo, because he's why he's up there, and it's not because of AAA. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go through this top 10, and we're going to absolutely obliterate the top 10. I will give my top 10 because I have already submitted my picks for this. I am still working on mine. So 1 is MJF. 2 is Rhea Ripley. I don't really have an issue with those. I had Ripley lower on my list. 3, this is where it gets bad. Austin Theory. No. Yeah, he's not really. He's going to be I'm leaning too far back on the mic. I apologize. He's going to be this generation's Mark Jindrak. That's just my vibe on him. Oh God, Mark Jindrak, best dropkick in the history of pro wrestling. Without the dropkick. Mm-hmm. It's just 5. Dominic Mysterio. I mean, I don't know that I really need to say much. They had Vikingo 4 just to completeness. Vikingo 4, which is fine. 6, Braun Breaker. I didn't include him in my top 30, but I get it. He's the son of Rick Steiner. And he's barely wrestled. He's wrestled 30 matches in his career? Something like that, yeah. Yeah, so I can understand that. 7, Carmelo Hayes. He's not even the best wrestler in the act. That's Trick Williams. 8, Konosuke Takeshita. Sure. 9, I can't believe she's this young. At 29 years old. Liv Morgan. 1, no. Absolutely not. She should not be in the spot. And Liv Morgan is a passable to good pro wrestler at times. She's not a future megastar. She doesn't have this super high potential. But 2, she's only 29? Man, WWE got her when she was 21 then. 20, according to the article. Oh, I see. Here's the thing. I'm not reading. 10, I had him lower, but I don't disagree. Logan Paul. I think he's actually a viable guy. I think that there's a couple questions with him that are unique to him, and that is he going to stick with wrestling, and just how much is he going to do with it? But he's I can't complain about him. He's for what he is, which is
for all this talk about how WWE is the company that does properly structured matches and everything and doesn't do just high spots, he is a nothing but high spots worker. Let's not get twisted, but he's good at the style match. So,
All right, Fred, are you ready for my top 10?
Hell yeah, lay it on me.
All right, so I did my top 30. Number 1, MJF. Chalk, like that's obvious.
Yeah,
2,
I think you have to put MJF first, honestly, for a viable list.
2, Vikingo.
Okay, all right.
3, Takeshita.
Okay,
4, Julia.
all right.
5, Shota Umino. That one might be a little bit of a surprise.
Interesting.
I'm very bullish on Umino, and I'm at a point where I'm not blaming his split gimmick on him. I'm blaming that on New Japan not wanting to go full-blown Tanahashi with him because it's not fair. And I think the Moxley thing is actually helping him. Like, he's doing like two bits at once, but I think it's working. And this G1, he was tremendous. So, like, that's kind of where I'm at there. 6, Daniel Garcia. Pretty chalk.
Yeah,
Garcia was
one.
like 29th on this list, which is an abomination. 7, this is all Pro Wrestling Noah's fault, but I still think he's got great potential. Kaito Kiyomiya. Noah has treated this guy like he's worse than garbage. And he's great.
To not even like secure him a spot in the G1 playoffs or whatever you want to call them, quarterfinals, despite seeing him over, that's abhorrent. It's really terrible.
Yeah, I will say I thought New Japan booked him very well in this G1.
Yeah.
He drew against Umino. He drew against Tsuji. His wins were, I think it was both Hikuleo and Chase Owens, but he lost to Narita. He lost to Sonata, but he lost to Sonata with 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I think that's something that's getting glossed over. He lost like 2 seconds. And then did he lose to Gabe Kidd?
I can't recall now.
I think he did lose to Gabe Kidd.
I think he did. Yeah. No. That was a double count out.
Oh yeah, it was a double count.
Yeah, they brought into the crowd and everything.
Yeah, like I think objectively he was booked fine for an outsider. Mm-hmm. Like, should he have been booked better? Absolutely. But New Japan booked him like that. They still booked him relatively strong. He looked good in his losses. He tied against the 2 guys that you're going to push to the moon. They are basically telling you he's on their level. Yeah. They said he was on Sonata's level.
They did.
And
they booked him well.
2 seconds left.
The failure is like Noah not even caring enough to like negotiate for him to be in the playoffs. And they could try to spin it or whatever. Further discussion of Noah. Did you see the screenshot they did when they announced that Yuma Anzai is in the N1?
Oh yeah,
like the thumbnail they used. In case you didn't see it at home, the little video they did little videos hyping each guy in the tournament. Which, cool, good. You should do that. That makes sense. Especially when you're not that big in England the English-speaking world. You need to put your guys over. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. No complaints. Their Yuma Anzai video, which, again, as a reminder, is an All Japan guy. That video just said the future of wrestling. He is the hope. I'm sorry, even better. He is the hope of Japan.
Just incredible.
Yeah, that's rough, man. That's not great.
No, it is not great. But let's continue my top 10 because I have given you my top 7. 8, Dragon Lee. I can't believe that dude's not 30.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. that it's like with Bandito, where you can't believe he's not 30 yet either.
Yeah. And excuse me. All right, number 9, Toni Storm, who I believe is the best women's wrestler in America today. But one spot behind her is Rhea Ripley. I was wrong. I did have her top 10.
That's fair. Do I not
And
have? I need to make sure I add Rhea Ripley to my list. I'm still working on it. So, like,
I did have.
That's not a snub. That's just not me being fully done.
If you've never seen her, Haya Shishida, she had that
Utami Haya Shishida.
Yeah, that 5-star match in 2021 against Shuri back in June. I think it was the date of that match. She's at 11. Tremendous pro wrestler.
She rolls.
Yeah, it's a very fun list, and it's going to have a lot of different people on it for like across the board with VOW. Oh, yeah. And I can guarantee you one thing. There will be no mention of Dominic Mysterio.
I do wonder if someone's going to name him just I don't know, as a meme or what. There's a possibility, but I wouldn't completely rule it out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you a name that's still eligible for this list, which will make you think.
Okay.
Riho.
Yeah, she's been wrestling since she was, 12?
Yeah. It's crazy. She's still eligible for this.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Segueing out of this, there is one more thing I want to talk about on Dynamite.
Okay.
And it's that main event match we had last night. And I think this was supposed to be kind of a big statement match for Anna Jay. And this was not it. She's, a hit or miss worker. And on this night, she missed a lot. Add on to that she blew a couple spots. She generally looked like she was moving through like Jello to work this match. Ooh. And then the end where she gets pinned near the ropes, but Angelo Parker reaches into Anna Jay's hand, but nothing happens. It was really odd. And I don't know what that was about, but I thought this was super underwhelming because she is a good worker. I went 2 stars flat on this. Like, it wasn't an utter disaster or anything, but it was not good. And I thought it was a super flat finish to to an episode of Dynamite that could have used a boost there.
Yeah, I like the idea of giving people title matches and just having extra title matches on TV sometimes. But yeah, look, Anna Jay's not ready for this. We've known she hasn't been ready for this for a couple years. Just, man, no.
Yeah, this wasn't it. Just a really rough performance from her. And it's disappointing because she, you think that she should be talented enough to do more. But this is what we got. So what can you do?
Nothing.
Sometimes it'd be like that.
And Fred, that is our show.
That's it for the wrestling. Do you want to do a quiz before we go? I got a little football quiz to warm you up since it's coming.
All right, let's do it.
Let's see what your memory is of 15-year-old football, because I want you to name the quarterbacks that Darrelle Revis intercepted. Ooh. I got this pulled up on the Sporkle. He picked off at least one guy every year from 2007 through 2016. You have 4 minutes. I'll let you go wild for a little bit, and then if you start needing hints, I can give you the year and the team the quarterback played for.
Okay.
You with me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Ready, set, go.
Well, let's start here. Tom Brady.
That was 3.
1. Matt Castle.
That was 2. So 5 now.
Started for the Bills around then. Man, I don't know who the Bills quarterback was at that time. Ryan Tannehill.
Got him 3 times later on. Yeah. 8 of 28.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Can I spell Roethlisberger? It doesn't look like it can. Or maybe he didn't get him.
ROE.
Yeah, I got it. No, he did not pick off Roethlisberger.
Joe Flacco.
No.
Andy Dalton.
No. You want me to start giving you hints?
Yeah, probably.
All right, 2007, Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins.
07 Dolphins. Jeez. Dante Culpepper.
Nope.
Cleo Lemon.
Ooh, that's a blast from the past, but no.
Would have been the Dolphins starter in 07. You know, I used to be phenomenal at this, but
Yeah.
like with the immaculate grid, my brain is just not quite there anymore. 07 Bills.
You want me to give you some?
Lossman.
Lotman.
Lossman.
Lossman, that's right. Sorry, I remember that guy now. That 2008, you got one of them. That's 9 now. Here's some more clues. 2008, there was a different Bills quarterback than Lossman. There was also a Dolphins and a Cardinals QB.
Carson Palmer.
That's 2. Did not get the Cardinals one, though, from 08.
Kurt Warner.
There you go. Twice, actually, on Kurt Warner, interestingly enough.
Who was the other 08?
Dolphins and Bills, non-Losman's category.
Chad Pennington.
Yes, for the Dolphins.
Man, Bills quarterback in that time frame. I'm blanking.
All right, we'll go on to 09. You had the Raiders, Panthers, Bills, and Bucks in 09.
Raiders 09. Jamarcus Russell.
There you go. 1 minute left. Still have the Panthers, Bills, and Bucks from that year.
Bucks 2009. I don't know. Panthers. Jake Delhomme.
There you go. Twice, actually.
Okay.
2010 Chargers, as well as 2011.
Chargers is Phillip Rivers.
There you go. 2012 Bills, 2011 Cowboys, and Dolphins.
2011 Dolphins is probably Ryan Tannehill again.
Nope, that one doesn't go.
Okay. 2011 Cowboys is Tony Romo.
Yep. 2015 Colts.
Andrew Luck.
Yep. 2015 Washington football team. Got 5 seconds.
Kirk Cousins.
There you go. And 2016 Bills, time is up. You got the big names. You got 20 out of 28, which is above average at 71%. You missed Ryan Fitzpatrick twice.
That's the Bills quarterback. Fudge.
Also for the Bills, the immortal Trent Edwards. This is some guy remembering right here. I think the most obscure one is for the 07 Dolphins, John Beck.
BYU legend John Beck.
I do not believe is a real person. 09 Buccaneers was Josh Freeman.
Yep.
2011 Dolphins was Matt Moore. You got Fitzpatrick again for the 12 Bills. And then for the 2016 Buffalo Bills, which I barely got out, was Cardale Jones.
Taylor?
No, Cardale Jones. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Good job. That was some tough ones.
I'm pretty happy with 20.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
There we go. That's the show.
That's the show. You can follow me on Twitter at 304no. You can follow my Vikings work at USA Today's Vikings Wire, along with Vikings First and Skull, where we have our own podcast feed and YouTube channel. You can follow Fred on the Blue Sky. I am on there as well. And you can subscribe to his Patreon, which is paused currently, but we'll be coming back with a lot more interesting elements of analytical views on wrestling. And you can also subscribe to our own podcast feed, which is now also available on the YouTube. So make sure you do all that. Help us grow. Help us continue to be the number one pro wrestling podcast in the country of Turkey. And we will be back next week to continue the build for All In. And hopefully, despite all our rage, we still get Big Bill and Brian Cage. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone. Have a good one.
Cheering at pro wrestling shows in Japan is back, and 2023 is already shaping up to be a big year in the history of pro res. That's why you should listen to the Emerald Flow Show. From the Royal Road to the Green Mat, Paul and Gerard take you into the world of All Japan Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Noah. Not only do we analyze events, but we examine business, who is getting over, what angles are working or not. Occasionally, we take a look at other Japanese promotions like DDT and Zero One. So if you're looking for more coverage of the world of Japanese wrestling, check out the Emerald Flow Show on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on all of your favorite podcast apps.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.